Hi, class. This tutorial is for troubleshooting your first t-test using R and RStudio on a Windows machine. This video is assuming that you've already done the RStudio and R installation. So if you haven't done that, you'll want to start with that video first. And in the previous video, we ran through the t-test script together. So this video will go over what to do in case you encountered any problems during that t-test script. So we're going to start here in R, and I've already got my files navigated to down in the file pane, and I've got my .r script window open here for editing. So the first thing that I want to do is set my working directory, which you would have done if you followed the previous video in this series. So now we can go through and each line of this code and run it and see if there are any errors that come up that we need to troubleshoot together. So we'll start here by running that library code for ggplot2. Remember, this is our package that contains all of the plotting information for creating graphs. The next thing I'll do is run this set working directory line. Remember, I would use this line if I hadn't already used that gear icon to set my working directory previously. So you may find using this line of code to be more useful. However, in this line of code, we have an error in that function. So our function is set working directory or setwd. And we see an error that populates down here in the console, and it gives us a clue. It says it could not find the function called setwd. And that's because we've made a typo and probably pasted that function name twice accidentally. So that's an easy fix. We can just come up here, delete one of those copies, and try to run that line again. It does run successfully the second time. If you ever want more information about the functions that you're working with in R, you can type down in the console question mark and then the name of the function. If you hit enter in the console, it will open up a help window here with information about that function and the parameters that are necessary for running it. Okay, so my next line of code here will be this antibiotic zones. We're going to create that object that we had created that data set in class, saved it as a CSV file, and that CSV file is located in my working directory. So now we have our object called antibiotic zones. The next thing that I'll do is check the structure of that object so I can see how many entries there are, how many rows, and how many columns there are. Okay, when I inspect the structure, I'm already noticing a problem here. I see that there's 12 observations, meaning 12 measurements present in the data file, but I know that my class only took 10 measurements. So I'm already suspecting that there might be an error here. It says that there's also two variables, which is accurate. I remember having two different columns in that data file. The first column that it reads is called BIOL229 Jane Smith. And then the second column is called X. Now that does not look right to me. I do not remember having columns with those names. I also see that that first column is a character variable, and it does have some E. coli as examples in that preview. It also has bacterial species and then these quotes that are surrounding nothing. My second column X is also called a character variable. So I need to open up that file in Excel, make some modifications to make sure it matches the format that will be readable in R. I probably need to remove something. I can open up what R has imported by clicking on antibiotic zones here and just inspecting it within R. Right away, I see what's going on. The row number 2 has what should be my column headings, and then we have a blank row number 1. And what R read as my column headings was really this line where I have the class name and a student name. So let's open up Excel and we'll make the modifications there. If you take an upper level programming class, you'll learn how to clean up this data set within R without having to go back to Excel and make any changes to the CSV file. Okay, so I'm just going to open up Excel and here's that antibiotic data file. Now I need my column headings to be in row number 1. I can't have anything else above them. So I'm going to just delete those 2 rows. I'll save this file and go back into R. After I've saved my file in Excel, I need to import it into R. So I have to go back to line number 14 and run that line one more time. Okay, so I've re-imported that object and I can see already that it has 10 observations of 2 variables. That looks much better to me. I can go down and inspect the structure of that data object. 10 observations of 2 variables. That looks good. Now I have my first column is bacterial species. It's a character variable, meaning it's made of letters, spaces, maybe punctuation marks. As well as it could also have numbers in it, but if it has any letters or spaces, it will import as a character type variable. And then I have my preview showing a few lines of E. coli. My second column is zone diameter. That one has also imported as a character variable. Now that's going to be problematic because our t-test requires that we're going to analyze either integers or numbers. So this should be integer or numeric right here. And I can see from my preview that I do have some text present in that column. That column needs to contain only numbers to be able to do our analysis later in R. So again, I'm going to go back into Excel and make that modification directly on the CSV. You could do this programmatically in R, which I can show in a future video on that topic. So back in Excel, I'm just going to correct these cells by deleting the letters. Now I have only numbers within that zone diameter column. I'm going to just take a look in R here. So it looks like my bacterial species was character variable, and that's exactly what I wanted it to be. So in Excel, I'm going to save this file. After I save it, I can go back to R and again run line number 14. So I'll re-import that data into R. Now I can inspect the structure, and the structure looks good. 10 observations. I have 1 character column and 1 integer column. The next step is to check the levels of that bacterial species column. We want to know how many different levels there are because a t-test is a statistical test that compares 2 levels. So we want to check to make sure we only have 2 levels present in our data frame. Okay, and right away I can see that there's an issue here. I have 3 levels. I have 2 of them that are called E. coli, and the last one is S. aureus. So I need to take a closer look and figure out why the 2 different E. colis were imported and interpreted by R to be 2 different categories. Looking closely here, I see within the quotes we have E dot space coli. Then in my next column, I have E dot space coli, and there's another space at the end of that word. I can tell because there's a gap before that final quotation. So I need to go back into Excel and just double check that all of my categories here were entered exactly the same. This very first data present in column A and cell number 2, this E. coli has a space at the end of it. So I'm just going to use backspace to remove that space. And I'm just going to also double check all of my others and make sure that none of them have any more hanging or invisible spaces at the end. Spaces and some other characters are visible to a computer, but they're not visible on screen to the human eye. So it's important to inspect these carefully. You might also use, for example, the paragraph function here in Microsoft Office, or if you have another app like Notepad++, it will make visible all of those characters that the computer will be reading. Okay, it looks like all of these are identical now, so I can save this file again, go back into R, and I will re-import it again. Okay, I will now check the structure, and that looks good. Go down and check my levels, and now I'm left with just 2 levels, which is exactly what I want for this analysis. My next line, number 5, step number 5 is the t-test. I will run that t-test, and it runs successfully. Now I'm ready to make my box plot figure using the ggplot function. So I'm going to run this group of code by hitting Control Enter. And I notice right away that I've only run the first line of code here. So there's a problem. Even though there's no error message down here, I can tell that not all of that code chunk actually ran. That usually means that there's missing a plus sign at the end of that line of code. So I have to have a plus sign here in order for all of the lines following to run as well. So I have pluses at the end of each one of these lines, which is what makes this a chunk of code. Okay, so I'm going to try it again here now that I've added that plus sign. And I've run into another problem. This error says object Y label not found. So I'll go back and find, here I have Y label. I'm also missing my Y-axis label, I notice. Y label is not a valid function name. It should be Y lab. So I'm going to fix that by deleting the end of that. And I will also add my Y-axis label here. Okay, now I will have both an X label and a Y axis label. Okay, I'm ready to run this code chunk again. And it ran successfully without any errors being thrown. Now I can call that object t-test-graph so that I can see the plot displayed on screen. And I get one more error here. There's an error in geom box plot, so that's our line of code up here, number 29. And it says that it is caused by the check aesthetics function. So as the plot is being built, there are some other functions that are running in the background. And one of them is this check aesthetics to make sure that all of the things that we're putting onto the plot match what's present in the data set that was supplied. And it's telling us that the aesthetics must be either length 1 or the same as the data within the mapping fill. So here's fill. And I see that I have 3 color names, orange, navy, and green. But I only have 2 boxes that I'm going to add to this box plot, one for E. coli and one for Staph aureus. And so I need to have either one single color name that will be the same color for all of the boxes, or I need to have a number that is identical to the number of variables that I want to plot. So I only want 2. I need to get rid of this last color name. And now I'm left with just orange and navy. I'll try to run this group of code again and call that object one more time. Okay, now I have my graph is created, and this is how I would like it to look. I have the X and Y axes labeled, that box plot function, and my species names on the X-axis are italicized. I'm ready to use the ggsave function to save this file to my computer within that same folder that we're using as our working directory. If you encountered any other trouble while doing this video and running through the t-test script, you can ask your laboratory GTA for some more assistance. I think this video covers some of the more commonly encountered issues that students who are beginning to use R typically encounter. You might run into other issues as well, but you would want to look at the error function that's displayed in the console to try to troubleshoot those issues.